A parable of children's kindness. There was a double celebration in one of the elementary classes of a city school. Two kids from the same class, a boy and a girl, had their birthdays on the same day. From the very morning, both birthday kids were excited about the moment when the teacher would give them gifts. Traditionally, parents would give these gifts earlier to the school. And here comes the moment. Teacher called the birthday kids to the blackboard. They were given the long-awaited gifts. As a result, the boy stood with a huge guided spaceship in his hands and glowed with happiness. The girl smiled a little and clutched the small book to her. She could barely hold back her tears. During the break, the boy noticed the girl was sadly looking at his gift. After school, the boy asked his parents for a favor. Half an hour later, they were already walking around the toy store looking for a special gift. The same evening, a courier knocked in the house where the girl lived. Parents opened the door and called the daughter. The girl received a huge box with a bow and a small note. The note said it was a real gift from the parents. And in the morning, they just decided to make a joke. The girl hugged her surprised parents, grabbed the box, and happily entered the house. And the boy with father, standing around the corner, went home with smiles on their faces. In the evening, the boy's parents once again congratulated his son on his birthday. The father asked, "Sweetie, why did you ask for a present for this girl? You don't seem to be very close friends with her, do you?" The boy smiled and said, "Yes, we are not friends with her. But they say that on your birthday, you should do something that brings you happiness. So I did." Kindness and sincerity are so easy to do, and children deal with them best, and many adults should learn from them. Elliot was very fond of constructing. He liked to build tall towers. But soon he got tired of the constructor, and the boy got a new goal. One day he saw a video of a man building a huge house of cards, and Elliot wanted to repeat it. Every day the boy sat down at the table and tried to build a house, but nothing worked for him. The cards didn't hold and were constantly falling. But despite all the setbacks, he didn't want to give up. Elliot has always been an independent boy. He didn't like it when someone helped him in some way. At this early age already, he was determined that he would achieve everything on his own. Once again, he rejected his father's help. John saw how difficult it is for his son to build a house of cards and decided to help him. But Elliot was just getting grumpy from it. But he wanted to show Elliot that there's nothing wrong with getting help from loved ones. Then he decided to take him to the park to a small pond. A duck with ducklings usually swam there. When they arrived, the duck helped the ducklings to get out of the pond to the shore. John looked at them and said, "You see, the duck is helping its children. They cannot cope without her mommy." Elliot looked at them and replied, "They're just small and stupid. But they will become like me. They will begin to do without help." Then John realized that his son needed a different example, and he had a plan. John remembered that in the morning, his wife had asked him to help finish the earthen pot. She wanted to make a big one this time. When they arrived home, Mother was already at work. She was a designer and was making a custom pot, but was running short of time to finish it. John and Elliot joined in, When Elliot helped his parents, he noticed that the work went smoother and was more fun. The pot was ready in just a couple of hours. Elliot was amazed at this result. The pot turned out to be very beautiful thanks to joint efforts. Mom thanked him and said that she couldn't have handled a large pot in such a short time alone. Elliot looked sadly at the cards. "Dad, help me with the house." Elliot decided to ask his father for help. John smiled. He sat down with his son at the table, laid out the cards, and began to help his son to put up the house. Along the way, he explained to him every action. Together with his father, he was able to assemble a house of cards, and he enjoyed working as a team. When they finished, John told his son that in the company of his loved ones, he would be more successful than alone. Elliot remembered the words of his father and since then on began to accept help from loved ones. In any endeavor, the help of loved ones is needed in order to achieve success. So don't reject it. In one forest, an old oak and a young birch grew next to each other. They had been growing together for many years. They talked, rustled with their leaves, met sunrises and saw off sunsets. The oak has been growing for over 100 years, but recently some of its roots began to die and it was slowly drying up. Once the woodcutters came to the forest, they saw an oak tree and its disease. People decided to cut down the tree. They chopped off the branches and went to get the tractor. The oak lay in the clearing and was silent, and the birch rustled its leaf in alarm. She cried that the oak was cut down. She said that they grew up together for many years, and now he's gone. She thought of so many things that she hasn't asked him about his interesting life, and lost her chance. Oak laughed. He thought for a second and said, "I grew up here for many decades, but here you are asking me to tell you about my life, and I don't know what to tell you. Every day was like the previous one. The sun rose in the east, set in the west. Night was followed by day, summer by autumn. I covered myself and shed my leaves, and so all my life." Birch was surprised. She asked if the oak tree had nothing to remember in his entire life. He thought about it, became gloomy, and then smiled. He remembered. He said that one winter, a squirrel lived in his hollow. She talked about what she saw in different parts of the forest, and he fed her with acorns. He also remembered how once a young man had been struck by lightning. It burned several of his branches, but the man survived. And also, the oak smiled. It was winter, and two people got lost and stuffed under me. They were freezing. They didn't have the energy to pick firewood, and I threw them a dry branch. They made a fire, warmed up, and survived. Birch asked if he was scared of death. Oak thought about it and said no. He said that now, lying on the ground, he realized that it was much more scary for him to stay growing like this for another 100 years. He would stay here under the sun for decades, dry up completely, or worms would eat him, and he would have nothing to remember. So it's better to make furniture or doors out of him, and that way he will give joy to a family, or protect someone's home from wind and cold. Now the birch was thinking. They remained silent until the morning. In the morning, a tractor and people arrived. They began to load the oak, and the birch began to rustle. She asked for one last advice. Oak smiled and said that one needs to appreciate loved ones while they're alive. They should give them attention and talk to them now, not put it off until tomorrow. And most importantly, always remember, the oak groaned, our life is not the days that have passed, but those that are remembered. I, as an oak, have existed on this earth for 100 years and lived only 3 days.